Yo, I just wanted to record this Tubecast to address a question I've been getting a lot over the last few weeks. And basically, it's like, how can rates decrease and the fuel price increase? I'm going to attempt to explain this in the best possible, simplest way, if that's even correct English or whatever. But before I do that, I need you to understand a few things. The first one is we're not going to even consider talking about fuel surcharge because the fuel surcharge is often like a week behind. And most people pulling spot market freight, which means they getting the all inclusive rate and they don't know the amount of the fuel surcharge for the load anyway. The second thing is we got to talk about the law of supply and demand because it's the biggest factor in the price of rates. Simply put, supply and demand is the big joker in trucking. It trumps everything. You hear me? The big joker, everything. And the law of supply and demand answers all the most commonly slash important questions in the trucking industry. It explains why rates are down as well as why rates are up. As a side note, I gotta add that we just completing the first quarter in trucking. If you review trucking trends, you'll find out that the demand for goods is usually low in the first quarter of the year. Some reasons you're gonna hear is that end of the year inventory, sometimes the weather stop people from going out. The stores already have a lot of back stock because they ordered before inventory, all that good stuff. Honestly, I can't side on why it happens. I only choose to focus more on it will happen than why. Now back to the supply and demand thing I was talking about. Let's unpeel the onion on this thing because it's a couple layers. So I want to dig into it, not too much to confuse people, but enough to give some clarity to some people who I feel are lost. To fully understand the supply and demand principle in trucking, we need to look at the trucking markets. Now, the trucking market is composed of three types of markets. One market type is a shipper's market, or sometimes called a loose market. Now, simply put, what that means is the supply of trucks is higher than the demand for trucks. You see that in places like Florida. You have a lot of trucks going to Florida, bringing freight in, but not a lot of freight being shipped out of Florida. Thus, Florida is notorious for having low rates for loads leaving Florida. Florida is the perfect example of a shipper's market. Rates go down in a shipper's market, which is also considered a loose market. I don't know if I said that at the beginning, but a shipper's market is also considered a loose market. So them two terms are interchangeably, but rates go down in a loose market. Another type of market is called a carrier's market or a tight market. Now, simply put, what that means is the supply of trucks is lower than the demand for trucks. You see that in places like Wisconsin. Wisconsin don't have a lot of trucks bringing freight in, but they need a lot of trucks to ship out cheese. They ship out cheese. You get good rates on cheese. So in Wisconsin, you usually get a good rate to take loads out of Wisconsin. Rates go up in a tight market. The other type of market is called an equal market or a balanced market. Now, simply put, what that means is the supply of trucks is equal to the demand for trucks. You see that in places like Chicago. A lot of trucks bring loads in Chicago, and Chicago has a lot of freight to ship out. So things are pretty much balanced in the Windy City. In a balanced market, rates stay the same. So let's recap. In a shipper's market, the rates go down. In a carrier's market, the rates go up. In a balanced market, the rates stay the same. So I said all that to say this. We in a shipper's market, the price of diesel is going to have little to no effect on the price of freight. Well, let me say that a different way. If we are in a shipper's market, which clearly we are, the price of diesel is going to have little to no effect on the price of freight. So when I hear people saying that if diesel goes up, the price of freight should go up as well, three things come to my mind. One thing is they don't understand the law that governs the trucking industry. Another thing comes to my mind is that they've been leaving money on the table when they've been negotiating their rates. And the last thing that comes to my mind is their overhead is so high that their entire business model is based on the price of diesel, which is crazy to me, but it's a lot of people who just jumped in trucking and really don't understand the trucking, the logistics industry, let alone the supply and demand that really governs the rates. So I hope like this Tubecast was informational to some people to give some clarity about how diesel prices can go up, but the freight prices can go down.